Welcome back, everybody, to the Good Bit podcast. Chris, how are you?
Oh, I'm well, thank you. That was a strange introduction.
How was it strange? Yeah, you go on and on and on. Nah, we're getting right into it.
It's what I'm known for, the big introductions, you know. So when someone else does it, it's a little bit odd for me. So
I mean, I can go on and on and on and on and on if you want me to.
Well, what else would you say?
Well, today's episode's a bit different, isn't it?
It is.
Because I'm in charge.
Well, I never said you're in charge.
Well, I'm saying I'm in charge.
I said you can be the host of today's episode. I didn't say you were going to be in charge.
I'm basically in charge.
Okay. Even though every time that you planned something for this episode, you checked with me to make sure it was okay.
Oh yeah, just need to make sure you're okay. You're the boss after all.
That's right. Don't
Do
you
know what I mean?
forget it, pal.
I sent you that TikTok to make sure, go follow us on TikTok, to make sure it was of your liking.
Yes.
And your standards. Did you enjoy my TikTok?
I did. I was really proud that you managed to put it together, basically just on your phone.
Mm-hmm.
That's what people do apparently on TikTok, the young people, the young generation that I'm not part of. So yeah, that was really good. They got a nice wee, I don't know, some feedback and some nice, I was going to say results, but some nice...
everybody's given it so much love and I really appreciate it. So thank you everybody that's liked the podcast, the TikTok. I just kept saying that whole day, Chris, I need to film a TikTok. Chris, I need to film a TikTok.
I know, just keep reminding yourself. Yeah, so that TikTok was for the I'm No a Billy, She's a Tim episode that was 2 weeks ago now. Last week we chatted about some wrestling, so thank you for allowing and tolerating the wrestling for 1 week.
Yes, well, I have to make time for the wrestling.
Absolutely.
It's important to you.
And what I will say is that you were the catalyst of bringing back the wrestling chat to the Good Bit and have the wrestling connection on the same feed, because I was stuck in two minds whether I'm going to do it or not. And you said, but Chris, the podcast is you know what I mean? It's your personality, it's your life. Oh, yeah. You do what you want, and that's all I had to hear. Oh yeah, it's true. The podcast is you. Yeah. I mean, now it's me too. Now it's you too. Sorry if you don't like that, but I'm here to stay, so... So we did some wrestling chat last week. Apologies if anybody was like, I wanted to hear some cinema. But we're going to do probably once a month, once every 6 weeks, something like that. We'll do some wrestling chat on the Wrestling Connection.
Yeah.
Yes, but I feel weird now because I'm answering questions from you. So please, host, boss, carry on. I just remembered I need to text my mum. So you talk for a bit.
Oh, right. I talk for a bit?
Aye.
Jeez, well, I've got some notes, guys.
Why don't you explain what we're doing today?
Yeah, today's episode is quite a big one, Chris, so congratulations.
Thanks.
Do you want to tell the people why? What's so big about today's episode?
Well, today is Good Bit 150, as I was going on about all day today.
You put that in the background.
Okay. I remember
confetti.
episode 100 I recorded in London, and I remember being like, episode 200 is the next big one. But I guess we're just looking for any excuse to kind of do some form of like special episode. Yeah, I feel like 150, it doesn't make any sense. It's not an even number or anything like that, but it's a nice round number. Nice anniversary.
Yeah. Yeah, people celebrate every
150th
number.
birthdays.
Yeah.
Slowly, but they still celebrate them.
Yeah, the ones are the big ones. So it's 150 episodes. Well done. Congrats.
Thank you. It was a lot of hard work. It's taken a long time. Some people would say it should have just taken 150 weeks, but as things go, we take weeks off, we take months off, and now we're back here in 2024 with episode 150. Yeah,
and I need to give credit where credit is due, Chris. This is probably the only episodic series that you've actually managed to keep up with. Because you gave up with Game of Thrones.
I've not given up. It is on pause.
You have. You're actually doing quite well with The Bear right now.
Yep.
Started watching that. But how does it feel to have committed to something for so long?
Well, it's strange. I've not necessarily committed to it because obviously I've given myself an out on loads of occasions. And it's just the way it's been, whereas like I've tried to start stuff throughout my life and then I've just either not carried it on or it's just fizzled out or whatever. It's not had any legs. But I guess the Good Bit has been the most consistent thing because like I've wanted to talk about movies and cinema and connect with people. So I've just kind of used this as my outlet for the past few years. And there has been, times where things have worked in my favour. You know what I mean? Like, for example, a fortuitous thing that came out of the pandemic was more episodes of The Good Bit, because for the longest time we didn't do any episodes of The Good Bit because I was away from people. I wasn't in college anymore. I wasn't with my friends anymore, as everyone else was in lockdown, especially the first one. So myself and my original co-host, Aaron, I'm sure we're going to get onto that, we ended up recording loads of episodes in lockdown, and I think that gave it a bit more of a kind of second life. Yeah. And because those episodes were so enjoyable and I felt as if they were quite good, and we did it every week, for the first time ever. It was a real consistent thing I was doing. It gave me a wee push to kind of carry on with it, I guess. And now it feels strange when I'm not doing podcasts. And I think that's a good thing because it's become part of my life.
Well, yeah,
because
you're now in like a sort of rhythm, and we're trying to stay consistent and kind of grow a bit more. And
I'll still take time off and
hard
stuff.
for it, so.
You know what I mean? I'll still take time off when we went on holiday. You know what I mean? Like last November, we went on holiday, and I was like, okay, this is the end of this season. We just went on holiday this past June. Same thing. So I think that's good. It's healthy. If I had my way, it would just be a new episode every week, regardless. No off season.
That's not
like the wrestling.
That's not sustainable.
No.
Anybody who tries, unless you're like filming and recording months in advance, and you've got like a whole team behind you of editing and producing, which is my job now, but I don't really know what that involves still, but hey ho. But do you know what I mean? That's when it's doable, because then you're not thinking about it yourself 24/7.
Well, it's all that stuff that takes the most time, I love doing the podcast. I like recording, I like chatting to people and having, like the mics and the aesthetic of it and that sort of thing. But the thing that takes the most time is all the post-production stuff. I'm not great with social media. I'm doing a lot better these days.
You've actually been doing really well.
Yeah, and it's just having the right stuff and posting at the right time, posting the right content, linking to the right stuff, all that stuff. That's the sort of things that kind of takes the most out of me. So if there's like a quiet week on social media, it's because I'm done in with it. I'm like, I just need to put my phone down. But as I'm getting older, I'm becoming more and more reliant and addicted to my phone.
Well, that's not good.
I just, it's like in my head, I know it's happening too. That's another thing. And it's a frustrating thing. It's not like an addiction where it's like, what are you talking about? I don't have a problem. Like, I know I'm on that so much. So I'm down to like 15 hours a day now on social media. And that's like brutal. That was a joke, yeah.
Yeah. I was trying to do the math there. I was like, how long? I was like, what?
No, but it feels it sometimes though, man. It feels it that I'm on there a lot. So
yeah, but it's so easy because you just get trapped, don't you? Like,
and I've had stuff to do. You know what I mean? Like, I'll have to go message this person, and I message this person via social media. So when you go on there to do the message, it's like anything. And
then you're waiting for the reply. So whilst you're waiting, you've just checked
scroll on TikTok or whatever.
Yeah. Anyway, back to me. So I want to take you back 7 years, but 7 years ago,
2016.
16, yeah, 2016.
7 years?
Yeah.
Oh my god, I knew it was 2016.
Yeah.
But I guess I just haven't put two together.
Yeah, that's the math. 7 years ago.
Wait a minute, no, well, this is 2024, so 7 years ago would have been 2017. So it's 8 years ago.
No. Is it? What?
16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. 8 years. You're supposed to be good at maths.
No, I'm not. I was failing it. Anyway. No, but actually, side note very quickly before we continue. Chris passed his maths exam that he got, and he got an A. Everybody go give him some love and say congratulations, because well done, very proud of you. How does it feel?
That's another reason why it's good to kind of take some breaks with the podcast and stuff, because you do, when you study, you kind of get sidetracked and that sort of thing. For those who don't know, I did a maths course this year because maths has never been my strong suit. I never passed a maths test or exam when I was in school, so I just wasn't interested, just gave up on the whole subject whatsoever. I was like, I'm a creative person. I'll focus on English and drama and computing and all that sort of stuff and business. So I didn't do any math stuff. And just, I'd like to have it personally for the future. So I'm now in my 20s, went back and did maths and got an A. So
you did. You got an A. Well done. So yeah, 8 years ago we've discovered, because Iona's notes are wrong. You sat in a small studio in Coatbridge College with Aaron and recorded the first ever episode of the Good Bits Coming Up podcast. Because that's what it was called. How did you feel recording that? Did you think it would ever come up to 150? You'd been recording a podcast prior to that, didn't you, with Paul?
With Paul, by the
way, podcast, which I've done my Googling and my searching to try and find this podcast, and it is nowhere.
No.
I cannot find it. You've buried it very deep.
I'm not buried it. I just took it off online.
So
I've still got it on the hard drive.
Come on, play with the mystery.
Come
on.
Oh, it's gone for good. There was a lawsuit actually, and we lost the rights to the name, to the Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Right, too far.
Sorry.
Yeah, I did try and find that, but I couldn't.
Well,
I thought it'd be quite funny if I could do some references with that, but no, it's too much.
You know, sometimes I worry that the good bit isn't niche enough. It's a bit too broad, and I'm like, I don't have a niche audience, and I feel like I could be. I'm shooting myself in the foot by not just making it a one type of thing. That's what I think sometimes, right? Like, making faces that I've not said that to you before, but that's what I think sometimes, right?
You've said that before, but continue anyway. By
the way, the podcast I did every week between 2014 and the start of 2016, I guess. It would have been 2015 and extended 2016. Was so broad. Like, was it football? Was it wrestling? Was it just...
It was about everything, wasn't it?
We were into this podcast at the time called What Say You? And it was Sal and Q from the Impractical Jokers. They hosted this podcast called What Say You? And me and Paul discovered it, and we were just addicted to that podcast at the time, and that was just the two of them. But they got away with it because they were comedians and on television, whereas me and Paul were just these two boys from Glasgow. They were just sitting there talking about... Paul would go on about, like, the football, and I just... At that time, I was just starting to kind of get back into football, which was weird because I took a long hiatus away from it. And just... I was trying to kid on I was interested, and... I would talk about movies and wrestling, and Paul would kid on he was interested, and we had these wee segments. Paul used to work for a company, and we had a segment on the podcast where he would talk just absolute dirt about his work.
Oh,
right?
really?
But I was like, they're not going to listen. So that's another reason why I took it off, just in case he ever got in trouble.
Yeah.
And we always just told funny stories and stuff. So he went on like his first lad's holiday. You know what I mean? And he's like, I had to come home and tell the story on the podcast. So that's what that podcast was. It was me and like my childhood best friend, I guess, the person I kind of grew up with.
Yeah.
And we didn't have much in common, but we've always had good like chemistry and banter as a double act.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
It ended up being quite a funny podcast. And Glenn from the Wrestling Connection, who I did that podcast with, he listened to it religiously. I'm like, Glenn, what on this podcast could you find
never
interesting?
told me that.
And he was like, it was so entertaining hearing the two of you. So that was a way that me and Glenn ended up staying in touch because of that too. So that was the podcast before the good bit. Yeah.
Yeah, and then you started the good bit with Aaron. Was there much thought into the whole format? Obviously now it's more about you and us, or what we're kind of getting up to and whatever, as well as movies and cinema. But at the time, did you sit down and have a meeting and be like, right, we're going to talk about cinema, we're going to do this, like, and plan it out? Was there much thought into the format?
Definitely wasn't much planning involved, to go back to what you actually asked me. It started with the Cineworld card, right? Because I had wanted to get one, and Aaron liked films as well, and I was in this really kind of like, I was starting to really get into watching movies and stuff. So I asked Aaron if I got a Cineworld card, would he get one as well? So we had a friend to go to the cinema with, which is daft because we always went to the cinema around that time anyway. And I said to him in the library of our college, I was like, I've got this idea. I was just going to get this card to go to the cinema, and we'd go every week.
Yeah.
And we can document it, because at the time we were doing an acting course, a drama course to be actors. And I always thought, I don't know about you, also who has someone that's done the acting course, that like when you think of acting and professional acting and traditional acting, you don't really think movies, you think theatre, right?
Yeah, well,
Now it's changing now, but at least when I was doing it, like I was like, I had to read plays and I had to learn about practitioners, and I had to learn about
definitely
writers.
The course that I think we both studied, it was very theatre based at the time.
Yes.
But yeah, definitely more theatre.
So when I arrived at the course, and these people who were teaching me and stuff were like, what do you mean you don't really watch movies? Like, that's your homework. Your homework is go and watch movies. And I was like, oh, that sounds like great homework. So I guess I thought that's going to help me in my course if I go to the cinema every week and we'll document it. We used to have these like wee logbooks we had to keep and stuff, and I was like, that could be good for that. So me and Aaron ended up getting this weekly cinema ticket, or monthly cinema ticket, and I just wanted to document it in some way. And I was doing the podcast with Paul at the time, by the way. And I'd been doing YouTube for so long.
You and Paul did a podcast.
I know.
Bring it back.
I would like to listen to it, but it really wouldn't be that interesting. But I'd been doing YouTube all my life. I don't know if you're going to ask me about YouTube, but that's like something that I've been doing since 2007. So I was so young, so I was like so comfortable doing this sort of stuff. But Aaron, I guess, wasn't, and we were doing an acting course. So I was like, yeah, but we're going to perform and that sort of thing. So when we started doing the podcast, we didn't really plan it out. It was just to document the films we were seeing.
Yeah.
So that was late 2015 we got the card, so it was a good few months before we actually started documenting it on a podcast, not thinking anybody would really listen. That wasn't really my goal. My goal was just to kind of have documentation of the movies we watched, and we would do it together. And I had this podcast, by the way, going on, and I didn't tell anybody about it when I was at college. I kept that, and I kept YouTube in total secret.
Really? Why?
I don't know, I guess just because there was this thing in school that if I had a really big fear that because I was doing YouTube videos whilst I was in school, that people would pick on me and bully me in school by putting my videos on in class. That was one of my absolute biggest fears.
I can get that,
right?
Yeah.
Because it happened a few times, like in computing and that sort of thing, and the teacher would like take the piss and that sort of thing, right? So I just wouldn't want that to happen. So I just didn't tell anybody, and I just carried on. It just never came up, in my first few months of college. My very first year, didn't tell anybody I did YouTube. If someone found it, then fine, but I just didn't, actively sell it to people.
Yeah, it's like your fun fact about me.
And then, who's someone who's now super close to me, who is also a co-host on the podcast, on The Good Bit, Ian Grieve, who was a lecturer and an actor himself and a director and all this. So I think he was teaching us so much stuff and imposing so much wisdom on us. He made the announcement in class one day that he was starting a podcast.
Right.
He's like, I don't know if you know what podcasts are, but me and Greg are going to just talk pish for an hour. Ended up being 2.5 hours each episode, just saying.
Such a good impression.
So he did the podcast, he started it and he was looking for names and stuff. It started being called The Rap Party, later became The Rap Chat.
And
that was his podcast with Gregor. And it was about films. And I had this podcast about everything. And I was going to the cinema every week and I was getting really jealous. I was like, oh God, everybody's going to think he has come up with the idea of a podcast when I've been doing one all along and no one knows. So I remember walking from college to the train station with Ewan Ferguson and Leanne McMaster and people who were in my class and stuff. And I'd be like, Ian was saying he's going to do a podcast. I've actually got a podcast. And everyone was like, whatever, okay, we don't really care. Thinking it was going to be a big deal, but actually
they're going to be like, oh, wow, what?
But I also could it wasn't about movies and cinema and acting and stuff. I just didn't think they'd be interested. It was more about kind of sports and stuff. And then I was like, nope, we're going to do, because they're doing a podcast, we're doing the podcast, I'm going to compete with them and maybe we can do a crossover. And that's kind of the infancy of The Good Bit, which is it was just to document what we were seeing, to go along with our course. And then because our lecturers were doing one, we thought we would do like the young version and do our version, the student-y version of the podcast, and that's kind of how we started. And originally it was just going to be me and Aaron. It was just going to be the two of us.
Yeah.
And then immediately on episode 2, we were joined by more people. So that didn't last very long. So that was how it all started. Yeah.
You can go back and watch the very first episode of The Good Bit. I watched it on the bus up to the Highlands to visit Holly, and I thoroughly enjoyed myself.
Did you enjoy it?
I did actually watch it, and I really enjoyed it. Yeah, it's just so funny.
It's not very good, I don't
it
think
was
it's
so funny because you both look so young.
Wait, what?
And like it's just so you're just sitting, and it's quite not that you're a confident person, but now like I just know you as the podcast and this is your thing, and you just switch it on. Whereas me, like today, I'm like, oh, like I need to host, I need to start the episode. Whereas back then, watching you, it was just quite different. How kind of not shy. You're not shy at all.
No, I know what you mean.
But you're just a little bit more reserved, I think.
Guard us up a little bit, maybe.
Yeah, and like it's just like you yourself, your body language quite closed off. Your head's down a lot. Like it was just so funny watching you.
That's why I can't really
now
watch
look at you, you're like hi, like in front of the camera. Do you know what I mean?
Well, it takes practice, doesn't it? Like, it takes time and just getting used to it and stuff. But also, I had the idea of being on YouTube all my life behind me too. That's also been something that I've always done with working with cameras and presenting and that sort of thing. And see when I'm having a bad day and I'm trying to record something and I'm struggling to get the words out, or I can't think of a good intro or whatever, and I do like 6 or 7 takes or whatever.
Have you read my notes? Do you so you're like leading on to the next questions and all that?
Which is so connected. I get so frustrated with myself because I should be better at this. You know what I mean?
Well,
people always say you're so good at this, but you never see it. This has been the first take, but it doesn't always happen like this. You know.
No,
And I should be better. I wish I was better at it. I wish I was more natural. I still speak too quickly. I still say too much. I still do all these things. I still speak too loudly at times. and I peaked my audio. We did that episode with Dion and Jade and Rachel a couple of weeks ago, and it was just so chaotic because there was 4 performers all in the one room. I know you were there too, but I mean all on the episode.
I wasn't on the episode.
We were all shouting.
Yeah.
We only had 3 mics. So I thought the audio problems were going to come with the girls because there was 3 people sharing 2 mics, whereas I was just as bad. But it's because you're performing and you're in the moment and you're having a laugh and stuff. But that's where the unprofessionalism comes out because I should be able to go, guys, we're doing a podcast.
Yeah, but that's different, and we'll come on to like guests in a minute because it's like who you're talking with. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It kind of differs. But in regards to like hosting and presenting, obviously you've done your YouTube stuff. Apart from having the dream of being a WWE superstar, it's like presenting always been something like you're going to be Graham Norton one day. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, good question.
Is that?
Oh, I don't know if I like this. Iona, it's just like asking me proper questions. It also feels like something that we would have in like our personal life. You would just ask me questions, but we've never really went in detail about this. Really?
No. I know I've been saving it for
for this moment.
For today. I knew it was coming.
Aye. This is also an episode that I have thought about in the past. Like I'm going to go long form and just go in really in detail about everything. And I was thinking about stuff I was going to say. But see, this week thinking about this, like I keep saying I don't know what I'm going to say. Like I didn't want to plan too much because I wanted you to ask me the question.
I know that's the thing as well, because you want to share like the stories, the details, your thoughts, how you've got here, but you also don't want to come across. Because you've been you don't want to come across self-indulgent at all. Do you know what I mean? Just talking about.
But I'm gonna. This already looks like I have told you. Interview me with these questions.
No, not at all. This is my idea, and I think it's quite nice because I think as much as over the last 150 episodes, people have seen you interview people and heard your little stories and talk a lot and your jokes. Nobody's ever really got to like ask you many questions. That's true. So now it's your turn.
Alright, well I'm just well aware. This is also the YouTuber in me that we're already 20 minutes in. I'm like, oh my god.
I know, I'm watching time.
Okay.
We're doing well.
What I was going to say to you was when we were talking about the infancy of the good bit, I'll get back to your question in a second.
Yeah, it's fine.
Do you want to know what the original name of the podcast was going to be?
Yeah.
So the original ended up being The Good Bit's coming up, shortened to The Good Bit. It's supposed to be a pun on movies, right? Yeah. But the original name was Royale with Cheese.
You've told me that before, actually.
Do you know what that
means?
You've
now just like unlocked something in me. No.
Do you remember the context of that?
No, but now you say that, I remember having this exact same facial reaction of, what?
So in a couple of weeks, we are going to see the movie Pulp Fiction at the cinema.
Oh, right, okay.
30th anniversary of Pulp Fiction in 4K, right? I'm buzzing, one of my favourite movies. And me and Aaron, when we were first kind of getting together for the podcast, we were talking about our favourite movies. We were in a Tarantino kick, and we were just trying to come up with fun names. By the way, it's just such a generic name. I wanted to do something specific to movies, and there's a quote between Samuel Jackson and John Travolta in the opening, not the opening scene, but one of the first scenes in Pulp Fiction, where they're just having banter about to go in and provide this, do a hit on these group of people, and they're just kind of killing time, and they're just kind of chatting nonsense and stuff. And Samuel Jackson says, you know what they call a quarter pounder in France? Royale with cheese. And I don't know why, that was just what we said at the time, right? We were just quoting Pulp Fiction at the time, and I was like, we're going to call that the podcast, and we were so set on it. It doesn't even make any sense. If you've not seen Pulp Fiction, you'd be like, what is this? Like, if you don't know that it's going to be about movies, like, how would you know? And there was already a podcast called Royale with Cheese that just had their final ever episode that week. Can you believe that?
Wow.
So we couldn't just be like, oh, no, they're finished. We're going to take over and continue on their podcast on ours. So we changed to The Good Bit, which I actually don't like anymore as a name. I know it's kind of just gotten used to it. I don't like the fact that it's a the something. I don't like the way the word good and bit sounds in a Scottish accent.
No, I like it.
Oh, you like it?
I do.
It's me because I listen to and I write about it every day, but I guess.
Well, yeah, you write about it, think about it, say it.
Yeah.
Live it, breathe it. Everything all the time.
So why do you like it?
I like the good bit.
But it's like bit.
Yeah, but it's snappy. It's not a long word. It's not, you're not like, what's this about? Oh, it's the good bit. It's something that'll be fun. It'll be enjoyable. Positive. It's a bit. So it's not going to go on forever. It's like a small snap of like something. Yeah. And then when you like look at even like your artwork, which is, I love, by the way, the new artwork, you can tell it's movie, it's cinema. Like it's very much on the tin. You don't need to think too much about it. Whereas sometimes you come across podcasts, and I can't think of one. Yeah. But you're like, what's the name? And you're like, why is it called that? like there's one podcast which is really good. I think it's called, oh no, I need to check it. It's the Girls' Bathroom or something. And you just know it's like girl chat.
Girl talk,
it's a safe place. You know what I mean? You're going to get all the embarrassing stories.
Absolutely.
You're going to get big sister advice. Like, it is what it is. And I like the good bit. I do. Keep it.
That's I'm of course going to keep it. But that's good to hear. And maybe I'll focus group that. Like, what works, what doesn't. But yeah. Okay, so that was right. So the question was, I've always wanted to be a host.
Yes, about hosting, presenting. Is this something that you've always had on the cards? Because I guess it's kind of like, sorry, I don't want to bombard you with questions, but I guess like acting, is that always, because it kind of comes hand in hand, as you said.
Has acting always been a thing?
Yeah.
I would use the word perform more. Actor became a thing when I was like in school and I was doing higher drama, and I was like, oh, I'm actually not bad at this. And I actually thought, and then when I joined college and I was doing it as a course, I was taking it seriously. Like, I totally got into it, you know what I mean? And I was like, I'm an actor. Whereas now, I'm like, I feel like I'm more of a performer because there's other things to it. And that is, that's part of
I like that.
acting as well, and theatre as well. You're not just doing one thing. Actors don't just act, No. Actors also,
working a chippy. No.
But what I mean is, when they're acting, they do other things, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's they dance, they move, they sing, they do whatever, So a performer is always what I've wanted to be, I guess. You make a joke about being a wrestler. It's not that I ever really seriously considered that, okay, I'm going to be a WWE superstar.
Oh yeah, you definitely did.
But like, it's always that is my main thing, my main interest, isn't it? Like, so
it's not even an interest. Like that doesn't do it justice. It's a passion.
Yeah.
Like, you love it.
Like, I love cinema and stuff.
I love that you've got that kind of passion. Yeah. That's like the kind of commitment and dedication you've got to something. It's really, no, it is. It's lovely because I'm not that passionate about anything. Don't know what that says about me, but I don't have that like much. You know how like Sister Rachel is like obsessed, or has been, with like One Direction, like big fangirl, big massive fan of it. I never had that. So then meeting you, and like I was like, oh, he's really into wrestling. Just
that's a really intense
but I love
passion.
it. I love that you've got that passion.
I've kind of got 3 main passions. It's wrestling, it's cinema, and it's podcasting, performing, trying to create and that sort of thing. And I think I'm quite hardcore in all 3 of them. And I think that is probably quite a healthy personality trait, but at the same time, I could probably put more time into other stuff. I know for a fact, this is getting really deep now, I could put more time into my career and my future and saving money and all that sort of stuff. But I'm so invested in wrestling, cinema, doing this sort of stuff. This takes up all my time, those 3 things. You know what I mean? And you've just come along for the ride.
I don't mind.
You're my partner.
But then I think if this is your passion and what you want to put your time into and all that, then I think this is now a career that you could build on.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've always wanted to be a performer, I guess, or just I've always performed for people. Host is something that it's something that I've kind of gotten better at, I guess. I've got time to tell an old story. I don't know if I guess I do have time.
Yeah,
it's
go
my
for it.
fucking rules, isn't it?
Your podcast.
So I don't know if you're going to go here with this, right? So the very first podcast I ever did, right? I didn't even call it a podcast. I used to call it a radio show, and it was about wrestling. It was on YouTube, right? So this was around 2010. So if you do the maths there, I was about 13 years of age,
oh my God.
Right? And around that time, between 2009, 2010, 11. I had this nice wee community of other wrestling fans, other movie fans that all did YouTube, right?
Yeah.
And we all used to kind of get together and talk on Skype and talk on MSN. And I think before your time, Iona, there was a thing called Bebo. And we used to chat on there.
I remember Bebo.
Right?
My big sister had it.
But the main thing was Skype, right? So we'd be on Skype all the time, and we would. It's just complete strangers, people I didn't know that I kind of grew to know and became friends with through YouTube.
Yeah.
So we had this wee community. We used to call it the YWC, the YouTube wrestling community, right? And we'd all be together, right? And we'd all talk about wrestling. It got a little bit toxic at times because people would try and outdo each other based on how much money they spent on their collection. So a big part of my YouTube career back in the day was that I had this crazy wrestling merchandise collection, right?
Yeah.
And you think it's bad now? There was so much more back in the day, right? My main thing was the DVDs, right? Which is obviously
You've
I still got, right?
loads.
The main thing was DVDs, and that got me a lot of subscribers and stuff because I was always known as this guy that knew so much about wrestling and had all these DVDs, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I was so young, right?
Mm-hmm.
One of my, I'm jumping all over here, but there's one of my favourite episodes of the podcast
Uh-huh.
is the episode we did about the movie Teen Wolf. And my guest on there is a guy called Chad Arms,
Yes.
who is a full-time American hip-hop artist now.
Yes.
But I met him as part of the wrestling YouTube community, the YouTube wrestling community back in the day. And we connected. So this is a man from Tennessee, and I'm from Glasgow. Now, make that make sense, right? At the time, he was in his 30s. He had songs on Spotify. He was known. And I was this wee guy here. And we became pals because of YouTube, right? And collecting. We used to share, DVDs and talk about this. And he couldn't believe how young I was, right? He used to see these things in this video. He used to be like, this kid is from Scotland, right? And he actually does this video that's actually on the Instagram, the Good Bit Instagram, where he was doing like a live stream with one of his like rapper friends or whatever. And he had just been on the Good Bit and he was like promoting the episode.
Yeah.
And he's still calling me. He's like, this kid's from Scotland. This kid is hilarious, dude. And like, he's one of my friends that I met through YouTube, right? So he wasn't on this particular podcast. I used to go to a radio show, like a wrestling radio show. And I don't know what it says about me. I think it's something I'm relatively proud of, I guess, that I've always kind of been ahead of the curve a little bit with that sort of stuff and always been kind of creative in that way. This is very self-indulgent now. Whereas like,
Go for it.
I was 13, 14 years old and I would organise and plan out people to phone in at a particular time and ask me a question about something, and it would be the podcast. So we used to call it Wrestling Undisputed, right? So it was me and my friend I met through YouTube called Evan, and who was also part of the YouTube wrestling community. And we would host this.
I love that, the YouTube wrestling community. Can you have a reunion?
Yeah. I don't know where everybody is now. But I kind of transitioned into the kind of movie community, and that was so much nicer and so much less toxic because people were just like sharing their thoughts on. But it was like, no, you're laughing, man. I'm telling you, people would like leave hateful comments and stuff. Be like, I spent £200 on this championship belt. You don't have the right to say that in your video. And that was like chat. Like, it got really bad at times. So I wasn't really part of that. But this podcast thing I did, I used to call it a radio show. So, say for example, just off the top of my head, it was about a WrestleMania, right? WrestleMania in 2011, right? So I then organised, okay, I spent this, one guy, another guy, I'd be like, right, you phone me on Skype at 8:27 p.m. and you ask the question about this, right? So we'll talk about that for 6 minutes, and then at 8:40, then you phone in, and then you ask the question about this, and that'll be us moving on to that topic. And I kind of planned it like that. And I had these people who I'd never met before that were my friends through YouTube contact us on Skype, and I would record the audio and I would put it on YouTube, and that was a podcast, but I didn't know what a podcast was at the time. I used to call it a radio show because people would phone in and I would play like wrestler theme songs in between the conversations as if I was a radio DJ. And that was like my first ever like podcast. Yeah. So I kind of grew on that and developed that into kind of what. So I guess that was my first hosting gig.
That's such a good story,
right? That I created. It wasn't a gig. I created it myself.
Yeah.
But I was like 13 years of age doing that. It's something I think about that going, that was really clever, but at the same time, it must be awful to listen to. But at the time, you would go, if you listen to it, though. If you listen back to it now and it's bad, I would go, okay, but I was 13. You know what I mean? Yeah. So that's kind of how it started. So it's not that I've always wanted to be a host. I've just always done it. Yeah. You know, and now I'm much more comfortable. Although I'm talking so much in this episode, I'm much more comfortable as a host because I feel like I'm good at navigating the episode. And okay, now we're going to go here, and I'm thinking, right, what's the next conversation going to be and stuff. And sometimes I do get stuck, and I'm interviewing someone, and I'm like, God, I don't even know what we're going to talk about now. Yeah. But it's just something I'm good at. It's something I've always kind of done. And
and you are good at it because like there's some podcasts out there, and you turn off because the host isn't doing a good job of hosting or letting their guest have their moment. Do you know what I mean?
Well, I think the thing is, like, the most important aspect is listening to the guest and letting the guest, because it is your show, right? So so if I'm doing a podcast and I'm creating the podcast, it is all about me at the end of the day, because I'm going to decide what stays in. I'm going to decide what questions to ask and that sort of thing. But that can't come across in the episode. You know what I mean? That episode is about the guest. It's about or the topic. You know, if we're talking about a movie, we need to talk about the movie. I can't just talk for an hour about me, because that's not a good podcast. You know what I mean? So it's a skill and it's a talent that you need to kind of learn, and I don't think I'm great at it. It's something I've gotten better at over the years, and I'm quite comfortable in it. But I could definitely be better. I wish I was better at it as a host and as a podcast. But
then I guess it's like that whole thing of the only way you become a better actor is by acting. The only way you become better at maths is by doing maths.
Do 150 episodes.
You know what I mean? There's not like a textbook that you can read and be like, right, I've got it and I'm doing it. And you're doing it. Well, no, I'm doing it today. And if you're enjoying it, let me know, because I'll happily be hosting more episodes if Chris lets me. Okay, so thanks for your story, but now I have no idea where to go.
I'm so sorry. I knew this was happening.
And he's obviously like really good at coming up with a bloody segue. Do you know what I mean? Like pulling it out of thin air and just talking, and then it comes to him. Not me, so bear with. I was going to ask you about. We've not really spoke about this, but like we spoke about the kind of the production side of it. And kind of when it comes to like obviously your recording, your audio, your editing, you've obviously invested over the years in your equipment. I don't know where I'm going with this.
But like what was like, the kind of progression of the equipment?
Because obviously like you started with a mic, and I assume it was your phone in the first episode that you used to record it. And then you didn't always film the episodes.
No.
It wasn't always a video. So what was the progression like? Did you know eventually you wanted to do video? Was it always just
I think the video thing was just that I didn't want to have as much work to do for it, and it was one less thing it was one less thing to worry about. Whereas now, like in my opinion, if you're doing a podcast in 2024 with the way social media is, you need to do video.
Yes.
But like it is so much more work. Right, so now like when I do this, like I know why I never done it for so many years. And a podcast is just audio, right? You know, like that's kind of what I thought about it. Like, oh yeah, it's just an audio. So I'm a big podcast fan. I listen to them. I don't watch them, you know, personally. So I just kind of went with that. Equipment wise, the very, very first one I ever did, as I was telling you about in 2011, was on Skype. So it would have been terrible quality. That just recorded from home. I've done loads of stuff. Like I've just recorded on a video camera and just deleted the video and kept the audio. I've put that out before, which obviously can't be great quality, but it's what I've done before. The mic that I did in the first ever episode was bought for By The Way, which was a podcast that I did before, good bit, and was halved in price with me and Paul. And it was like a 30 quid microphone, like not expensive whatsoever, tiny, not good quality, had a buzzing noise in the background. Like that's another reason why I can't listen back to it, because the buzzing noise would annoy me. And then over time I would just progress and spend a little bit more money and that sort of thing. But I've never really made a lot of money off of this sort of stuff, so I never wanted to spend loads of money. But I guess that's like, as I've gotten older and I have bought a camera and mics and equipment and stuff, it does pay off, I guess. But I had like a blue snowball microphone, it was called. It was like 40 quid. Then I got one that was like 60 quid, and I just kind of progressively got more and more. The camera that I'm using to film my shot on this episode on today is the most expensive thing I've ever bought.
Yeah, I remember you telling me that. I was
and that was, I bought that, I got like a relatively big paycheck from an acting gig I did in 2019, and that's what I spent it on. You know what I mean? I'd been dying for a new camera for ages.
Yeah.
So I spent my wages that I got for this acting role on this camera. Still working, still going strong, 5 years. That's done me really good, especially in like 2020, 2021, when I was doing videos on YouTube every single day, and that was the only time I ever really made money from this sort of stuff, was around that time, because I was doing it so often, and that's because of the good quality camera and stuff. These microphones, I've always wanted to do a podcast like this. See the aesthetic of having a microphone and recording it like this and having the conversation. This is what I've always liked and liked the look of and stuff. I've just never got it to sound good enough for me. The technology of recording two microphones on the one thing has always been difficult, that I've just kind of gotten better at over time. But I like how we do it now. It's just not as easy as other ways. I would always usually pick the easiest option. Again, I don't know how that says about me, but like I just preferred it to be convenient I didn't want to stress about it, whereas now there's so much more
there's so many
thinking
elements that you need to pull together, and I sometimes feel quite bad like when I'm coming to help or do a podcast with you, because I'm like I can't do certain things like afterwards to help you make life easy. Do you know what I mean? I can't edit audio. I probably could.
No, but you can help me
like,
set up and stuff. That's a big thing. Like, it just takes forever, you know what I mean? But
I think it's definitely worth it though.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think
we look good, we sing good.
I think it's only going to get better too as we go on, you know what I mean? Like, it's going to continue to get better just as technology improves and stuff.
Well, that's what I was going to say is, like, obviously technology improves, but also podcasts now, as you say, are like a huge thing, and back then you were totally ahead of the curve at like 13 doing a radio show.
But we weren't even calling them podcasts.
Do you know what I mean? So now there's like a whole like kind of business empire around podcasting.
Everybody's got a podcast now. But it all started when Apple put the podcasts app on the iPhone or on the iPod.
Yeah.
Like, see, remember, like, the first time it was a design like this, like an iPod Touch, it was called at the time, not an iPod Nano.
Yeah.
Podcasts weren't on those things until the iPod Touch came out, and there was a podcasts app, and people could actually find podcasts.
Yeah.
That's when I discovered it, you know what I mean?
That's so funny.
What?
Just thinking
of how old I am.
Yeah.
There was a wrestler called Colt Cabana. That
of course you can relate it back to a wrestler.
He was that's how I got into it, because I followed him as a wrestler. He started a podcast. He's also a comedian, and he listened to a podcast that it was a comedian interviewing other comedians, and he wanted to be a wrestler interviewing other wrestlers, and he was so groundbreaking in doing that. He created a podcast called The Art of Wrestling, and it'd be him interviewing another independent wrestler who like wasn't. Sometimes it was WWE wrestlers and stuff, but the business was different back then. And he was the first like podcast that I like followed and subscribed to on the app on my phone. And then when I started the Good Bit and stuff, and it was like a thing you had to do, like you had to apply to get your podcast on Apple. Like you couldn't just do it like we do now. We just publish and that's it. It's on all these platforms. Spotify. Like Spotify, the fact that you're on Spotify is crazy to me. Still to this day, really. But like back in the day, there was no way you were getting on Spotify unless if you were like a verified recording artist or whatever. It's so easy now to start a podcast and to do it and get it distributed out there. But yeah, like it used to be a process you had to go through. You had to wait like 3 weeks to see if your application was going to get accepted and stuff. Yeah. So that felt like a big deal. See, when the Good Bit was like, I felt as if I said to Aaron, I was like, we need to do like 3 or 4 episodes, and then to have content to send out, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Oh my God.
I'm just totally going off on all these tangents.
No, you're fine, because I'm loving it. But again, I'm like, segue.
I know.
I'm listening, but they say, how you do this? I don't know. I'm listening, I'm like, okay, you said that. Can I go here? Can I mention that now? Did I not? Are we just going to go back in circles?
Mention it.
Anyway. Yeah, we mentioned Aaron there.
Yes.
Obviously co-hosts. You've had a few co-hosts. Who's your favourite? No, kidding. Rate them 1 to 10. No, you've had quite a few co-hosts and loads of different guests. I've said to you before, my favourite guests are when it's like close friends that come on, and it's just you're just having a chat, because I think that it just works. But what is it that makes a good guest? Do you know what I mean? Is there any that stand out to you? That you're like, they were really good because they had really good stories, or anybody that was just shy?
Well, obviously I'm not going to answer that question. But there's plenty that stand out. I mean, generally everybody's good. Like there's been very few times, almost never. I can't even think on off the top of my head that I've been like, this person was a bad guest. Yeah. The things that make the guest or the guest contribution bad is all technical problems. Yeah, like see if the audio's bad, the internet's bad, there's a delay, like those things obviously hurt the quality of the episode. But it doesn't mean the guest is a bad guest or whatever, right? Yeah. The best guests, if anybody's listening who's potentially going to come on, the best guests are the ones that just come on and talk. Just come on and go. Like we're just having
Matty Grieve. Not gonna
we're just having like a conversation. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's not, there's no rules. You know what I mean? Like, please don't feel like you need to wait there and be asked questions.
No, not at all.
That's what makes the best episodes, when it's just free flowing. That's what made the episode with Dion and Rachel and Jade 2 weeks ago about singing "I'm No Billy, She's a Tim."
It flew in recording
because
that.
We were just having a conversation, and yes, I asked them questions because we had a show to promote.
Yeah.
But the best parts of those of that episode, it's just when we're like laughing about old times and stuff.
Yeah.
And I just think and I actually struggle to keep things on topic sometimes because, yes, the episode's going to be about a movie or we've been to the cinema or whatever.
Yeah.
And that's the essence. That's what the good bit is. It's a movie podcast. It's a positive podcast about the cinema.
Mm-hmm.
So I do have to bring it back to that. But that's also helpful because it keeps things on track.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, because I mean, there's times I've listened to an episode and I'll stop it because I've not seen
Right.
the movie, but then you'll say to me, but we speak about it for like 5 minutes and then we start talking about something else I'm ready to skip. Do you know what I mean? Or who was it Rachel Keeler that you spoke, it was Encanto you done with her and you spoke about it for literally 3 minutes at like the end or something.
The episode is called Encanto and it's about that film, but Rachel's not a cinephile, like she's just not into like movies and stuff, and she even says that on the podcast. She's like, I've got total imposter syndrome. But that's also one of my favourite episodes because it's like it's an hour of us just telling funny stories and chatting about life, and she was a relatively new mum at the time, and this is like a pal that I go way back with, and so that was a really nice one because we're just chatting. But I don't know how good it was to the average listener who wanted to hear about Encanto. You see what I mean? And like the good bit's kind of gone through different kind of formats and that sort of thing. And that period where I had like a different guest on every week and they picked the film was great because I was watching lots of new films and that sort of thing. However, I had to keep it on topic. Jonathan Watson came on the show, right? Who is a Scottish comedy legend, TV icon, who I watched all my life growing up and stuff, who I would look at as a celebrity, right? But I felt as if I had to have half of that episode about The Godfather because that was his favourite movie instead of just chatting to him.
Yeah.
So I think that can be somewhat restricting sometimes. That wouldn't have happened if we were both in the same room though and we had unlimited time because we would just chat and I'm sure we would go talk about The Godfather at some point. Yeah. But because we only had a 45-minute window, I was like, I need to ask him this, and this.
Yeah.
But also have to talk about this movie that he's picked. So that's somewhat restricting, but it was nice. It was a nice format thing. So that's what makes a good guest. Just come on, tell stories, have a laugh, don't take it too seriously, don't be nervous, don't feel pressure. I know when the red light goes on and you're holding a microphone, it can be a bit intimidating. You say it all the time, you know what I mean? Like the big light's on or whatever, you're like, oh God, I'm getting nervous.
Yeah.
That's not going to make a good podcast if you're nervous,
well,
you know?
Recently in prep for this, when I was like kind of trying to come up with questions and whatnot, I watched obviously the very first episode, and I watched my first episode.
Yeah.
But I watched half of it.
Well, that's another thing, right? So the episode was about Don't Worry, Darling,
yeah.
right? But neither of us particularly loved the film.
No.
So we're doing this podcast where we could just be having a total laugh, but we were like, we better talk about this new film with Florence Pugh and Harry Styles.
Yeah. But I'd watched it, and I was like, I'm so nervous.
You could tell that from watching it?
Yeah, I was so fidgety. Like, it was just so funny watching it. I was like, oh, calm down. You're alright. It's only a light. But it was quite scary because, like, when was that? That was
October-ish, 2022.
Yeah. I'd been going with you for about 2 years at that point, so I should have been fine. But I was still quite nervous.
It was also the first time we'd done something like that, though. Like, it's not as if you'd been in loads of YouTube videos and stuff as well, you know, so I can understand that. In terms of the co-host thing, Aaron's like always been my co-host, right? Like in terms of like we started it together and that sort of thing. We've always been really good at kind of bouncing off each other. We've always had really good chemistry. But what I loved about it, especially those early days, is that it was like providing a sense of community for people. Whereas we were all together going to the cinema and stuff, and then we all gathered round the one microphone. They were a nightmare to edit. You think it was bad with 3 microphones? Imagine 1 microphone and 6 actors. Like that was wild. But it was nice because people were like actively looking forward to coming on and asking me to come on and stuff. And we would do it as part of our class, essentially. Yeah. Back when we were studying together. And then Aaron left to go to London.
That's right.
And so instead of just being like, oh, well, I don't have a co-host anymore, I just kind of continued making it kind of like a bit of a panel. Yeah. So I guess I didn't really have a co-host. It was more so just like whoever was on that episode until lockdown. And then it was Aaron again, and me and Aaron did it every week. And then, you know, then it kind of changed to having a different guest every week.
Did Aaron not say or announce he was leaving or do like his last episode of The Good Bit?
Yeah.
And then was back like
He was
2
on
episodes later.
Three
or
episodes
something.
later. We did. It was like I can remember it very, very vividly. It was the 10th episode. Episode 10.
So I remember looking. I was like, "Oh, what?" And I went, "No, but he's up there."
I think the episode was called like Aaron's last episode, and he was on like 3 weeks later or something like that. But that's just because he was leaving and he was going to London or whatever.
Yeah. Congrats.
But yeah, we were both hungover that day recording that. And it was a terrible episode, but it was one of the ones I remember a lot actually because it was supposed to be his last episode.
Was there any episode like after you finished recording that you're like, "Oh, that was a..." Obviously, you've got amazing guests, but was ever you're like, "Oh, this is an off episode. I don't know how it's
really? I thought you were going to say what's the best
sound,"
ones.
no, like if you're being like hungover, you're like, "I don't know if I'll put that out because it's probably a load of nonsense." Have you ever had anything like that that's kind of even come close to not making the cut?
Well, there's obviously been some stuff that hasn't made the cut that I've deleted, that I've taken out and stuff. I don't think I've ever just totally not put out an episode.
Yeah.
Maybe I have. Can't remember off the top of my head.
You've been doing it that long.
Yeah, I know. I don't know. Sometimes it's more so myself though. I'm like, oh, I wasn't good on that episode, or I could have remembered X, Y, and Z, or whatever. And but it's also when you're not really focused and switched on though. You know what I mean? Like if I'm totally in the zone, like it's probably going to be okay. And also, I can't. If people don't want to listen or are not going to enjoy it, then I can't change that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I need to just put it out. The episode's done.
Yeah.
A couple of times, like I maybe wish I could do a redo, but also the person gave me their time, so I couldn't ask them to do it again.
Unless you're Dion.
But Dion's a good pal though. I had no bother texting her and being like, the first 20 minutes didn't record, we need to do it again.
Yeah.
Whereas if it was someone that I just met on Zoom that day, I would just need to work with it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Like there's sometimes, literally like a couple of weeks ago, we were doing a podcast, we were recording an episode, and just everything was going wrong. Mine, it was like the camera, battery died.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
We hadn't switched that. We'd been recording for 20 minutes, and we hadn't actually recorded any audio at all.
Was that like the return episode of the season?
Yeah, like everything was going, and I thought, I was like, "You should just go chuck it. You should just not cancel the episode." But I thought we're not filming today. Like that's
it turned out
it.
to be quite good though.
But it did. It was a good
one.
episode. Yeah. It was just quite funny watching you, and I was like, "Is he going to keep going?"
Aye.
And then you did. You were a great host and presenter.
I've got the playlist in front of me now, so if you get more questions about episodes, I can refer to them.
Oh no, I didn't really.
Oh, yeah, that's fine.
Okay, drop me. Yes.
No.
I mean, have you got a favourite guest?
No, definitely
Have you got
not.
Have you got a favourite movie that you've like reviewed? I know there's 150 to think of, possibly more, because we do a couple an episode sometimes. But have you got like a favourite one, or one that thoroughly surprised you that you watched and you thought?
Okay, let's do a wee scroll then. So obviously I've done episodes about Jaws and Star Wars and like my favourite movies and stuff, but obviously there's been some that I was like, oh no, I really did enjoy that. Oh god, there's loads here, Iona, honestly. There's ones that I would have watched for the first time. There's ones that I would have loved, like Home Alone. Jeez. There it is there, Practical Magic. Not Practical Magic, Don't Worry Darling. That was the one above. There's one we did about the Karate Kid with Greg Jones, who is consistently one of my favourite guests.
Yeah, he's good.
And the video didn't work. So that bothers me to an end. But there's just video for everything apart for his episode, and it's just the Karate Kid poster.
Yeah.
That bothers. That's wee things like that bother me. But that was such a good episode too. Oh no, I don't know. There's just this. I don't want to be like that. There's too many, but like no. I mean,
there's
how am I supposed to pick? Because there's
lot.
episodes there's films I've watched for the first time, and films that I've watched for the 100th time that we've talked about. You know.
Yeah.
Do
you know what we've still not done an episode on?
Twilight.
Yep.
Yeah, I know.
Just saying.
Well, I'll ask you then. What are some of your favourite episodes? Because obviously you've here's me going into host mode again. You've started as a listener.
I have.
And then obviously we kind of got to know. We started talking in lockdown, so we couldn't meet each other and see each other.
Yeah.
So things like that, I guess, could be maybe the only way that you'd be able to like get to know me and stuff was like listening to the podcast and watching YouTube and stuff. Which is so weird to me.
It's weird, isn't it?
And makes me so nervous.
It makes me sound like a pure creep, stalking you online. Just call me Martha. Is it Martha?
Aye.
It's Martha, innit? Oh, I should have just committed to the bit. The good bit? No, too far. Yeah, it was quite nice having like something to go to see, because I could tell obviously we're texting whatever, and I'm like, oh, he's quite funny. But like actually hearing your sense of humour.
Yeah.
Huge disappointment. No, no, it was good. It was just so funny. See, watching that first episode, it's just the same jokes, man. It's so funny. Yeah, no, it was nice to have something to kind of refer to be like, oh, that's Chris. In terms of like favourite episode.
So before you go into that, did you find it weird at all that I was doing that stuff? Because it was it's like not telling people in college I had a podcast before I did. Like in school, you didn't want to tell anybody because maybe I wouldn't want girls to see me do it. You know what I mean? Like it was not that it's weird or anything, but because it's maybe a little bit kind of out there, I guess, that you do YouTube videos and you talk about wrestling and you talk about movies and stuff.
No, I didn't find it weird because like I'm a performer as well.
Right.
So I thought, oh, that's quite cool. It's a movie podcast. In terms of like YouTube, I was also a YouTuber back then in 2020.
Right, of course.
I'm gonna go take all those videos down.
Well, I watched those videos too, like just trying to get a kind of sense of you too. You know what I mean?
For anyone that doesn't know, during COVID, me and my twin sister were we were dance teachers at a dance school, assistant dance teachers, and COVID's obviously stopped all classes, and we thought we'll do some dance videos online, so like the kids could still have something to kind of watch every week and do a wee dance and just a bit of fun. And we had a great time doing that. Again, it was the commitment though, because we did every week. I think it was a Thursday we uploaded it as well. So we'd film it, or we'd have to come up with the dance, choreograph it, pick the music as well, record it. I had to record it so many times, and then put it out. So I kind of knew like the whole system, and I thought, oh yeah, and I never thought you were weird or anything.
That's good.
What a geek, do you know what I mean? That one
Well,
nerd.
you do worry about that sometimes, you know what I mean?
No, not at all.
What a loser.
Again, it was quite nice. It's something you're passionate about, like that you were just doing. You're doing your own thing. So yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's good to hear. That it wasn't weird.
Imagine after all this time. Yeah, it was.
That's why I didn't text sooner.
See you later. I can imagine I'll leave. Yeah, favourite episode. Don't have a favourite episode.
No, okay. No, it's fine. No.
Scroll.
No,
like, and think of ones that stand out. I'm going to say Dion, only because she was on recently. Her episode was a good one because it was a good chat. It was always nice listening to Ian, especially as well, because I just felt like I was in class again.
Nice. Well, it's been really nice recently that Ian has kind of become more of a co-host as well. You know what I mean? Like more of a recurring panellist.
Yeah, it's always lovely to have him on.
I've kind of dropped the different guest every time thing because you're too reliant on everything working. You know what I mean? And other people's schedules and stuff. So I guess that's the kind of format we're doing now, is we're just talking about the movies and our lives and what we're going to see and stuff. But we have like a cast of characters. You know, there's me and you, and then there's Ian, and there's Glenn now. Yeah. And there's the guys from Damn Good Talent and people like that who are like have their own kind of niche bits that I kind of check in with each time and stuff. And we'll still have new people coming on. I think that's a really important aspect of it because it is a networking tool, but it's also good for listeners to listen to the episode. And although it's not as if like we get thousands and thousands of listeners, but it's also good for the guests to come on and feel like they're talking about, you know, like their shows, their upcoming projects and stuff. And I've always wanted to do that. I've always wanted to like provide like a platform for people to do that. And I guess it goes back to your question about, have I always wanted to be a host? I've always wanted to like, or at least that past decade, like have your own show. And we're so like lucky now that YouTube's so easy to do. Anybody can do it. Yeah. Anybody can just have their own program and stuff. Whether it, you know, I've always wanted to get picked up by the BBC or whatever and have like Graham Norton or whatever, but like
one day. I don't
know.
Let's
like
manifest that.
Yeah. So this is the closest thing I've got like to having my own show. So if no one's going to give yet, you just go and do it yourself. Yeah. You know, so if I can like, if I wanted to have my own show, I would have, you know, silly jokes on there. I would have comedians on there. I would have guests. You know, like. So I guess it's just if I was getting paid, you know, big money to have a show on the television, it would be pretty similar to what the good bit is because it's my vision.
Oh yeah, it's just you. Yeah, it's you and all your chat. Maybe that's what you should rebrand as. Yeah. You and all your chat.
Chris and all the chat. I almost rebranded my YouTube once as Chris Flicks. So that'd be quite cool.
Has you ever explained why it's CM42 TV?
No. So my original.
So Chris, you've mentioned your YouTube there.
Go on.
You should just keep that in.
Okay. So it's CM42 TV because the original channel was just my name, which was Chris Moffat 42. Yeah. That was just the name, right? And then the channel gets deactivated because of one thing or another, copyright claims, whatever it was. And back in the day where it was a lot more strict. And then you just had to come up with new channels, and I just always went with like, that was how I was known, like in the YouTube wrestling community and the YouTube movie community, and that I was just CM42, and then I just created a name for the new channel in around 2011, 2012, and just put a TV on the end of it, just as thinking this is probably going to get deactivated at some point as well. This is just the next new channel, and it's just the one that stuck.
It just stuck.
Yeah.
And here you are.
So I'm CM42 as the person. That's my handle, and the channel is CM42 TV. That was the thought process behind it.
You're like, I was going to try and make a Star Wars joke there, but I can't get it out.
Just watching you.
You're like, what's the name? What's the robot? R2D2.
R2D2. How on earth am I like R2D2?
Because you're CM42 anyway. We've been recording for a long time.
You're supposed to be the host here.
I know, we've been recording for a long time. Here, I've been doing well, right? Okay, so finally.
Okay, hit me.
We're going to come on to a little game to finish off the episode. Now, going back to the very first episode of the Good Bits Coming Up podcast, that's now what I'm going to call it, the Good Bits Coming Up podcast.
Well, it wasn't the Good Bits Coming Up podcast.
What was Good Bits Coming Up?
The Good Bits Coming Up.
Yeah, but it was a podcast.
But it's a bit of a mouthful, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Whereas now it's the Good Bit podcast.
Yeah, the Good Bits Coming Up. Aaron decided to play a game, and he gave you movie titles and movie descriptions. And they were like ridiculous and very out there, and you had to decipher whether they were true or false, real or fake. I was trying to figure out the words there. So I was like, did I do that? And I thought, no, let's be a bit more original. So instead, I've come up with a game, and it's a bad movie description, and you need to try and guess the movie.
You've come up with a description?
Yeah, well, partly me, partly Twitter.
Okay.
So yeah.
Okay.
Ready?
So this is to test my film knowledge?
Yeah, just go with it, right?
Okay.
Don't ask too many questions. I just thought we need to have a game in honour of the first episode, and
okay, no, I like that. Okay.
This is what I come off. Plus, I think it's really funny, and some of the stuff I've got is great. So there's 10. I've got 10 for you.
Okay.
We're going to rattle through these.
There we go. Okay.
And I've not really done them in like a particular order of like anything. So we'll just see. Hopefully this one you get it.
Okay.
So number 1.
How big is this, you know?
A poor man commits identity fraud, then manipulates and technically kidnaps a group of school children. What is the movie?
School of Rock.
Yeah, well done.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was thinking The Talented Mr. Ripley, but I've just watched that and I was like, I wouldn't have made that.
No. I've seen all these movies, if that helps. So, Happy Feet 2.
That really does help, actually.
Okay, number 2. A young girl goes to university to get her boyfriend back.
Oh, okay. Is that Legally Blonde?
Yeah, it is. Well done.
Oh, yes.
Oh, these are actually quite easy. Oh, number 3 is a good one. You'll like this one. A Frenchman wants to...
A Frenchman?
A Frenchman wants to buy a hamburger. I'm not going to lie, I saw that on Twitter and I thought I need to put that in.
Oh, one of the most underrated movies ever. Steve Martin's Pink Panther 2006.
Yeah, I just thought I had to put it in because I just thought of you.
Oh man,
okay.
I'm going to get Ian to watch that. I can't
so
wait.
funny.
I cannot wait to hear Ian's review of that film.
Oh god. Number 4. A man tries to quit a reality TV show.
The Truman Show.
Yeah, I know.
What a movie.
This is quite easy, man.
What a movie.
Number 5. A girl tries to find her dad by planning a wedding.
Oh. Mamma Mia.
Yeah.
Duh.
Oh, I thought we were getting that one. Number 6. Space. Pew pew.
Could be loads of things. I'm going to assume Star Wars.
Yeah.
But that could be Star Trek. That could be Alien.
Well, I was trying to think of something, and I thought, no, the plot. I can't think of a way to describe that plot badly. Like, it just, I'll
so
give
you
it
went
away.
Space Pew Pew.
Yeah, for
Right.
that makes sense.
Okay.
Number 7. Oh, this is quite a weird one. A young boy and an old man go to extraordinary lengths to make the boy's parents have sex.
Whoa. Repeat it.
A young boy and an old man go to extraordinary lengths to make the boy's parents have sex.
I'm not sure.
You know this one?
I know this one.
Yeah.
Can you tell me, do you have the name of the thing there?
Yeah.
Can you tell me the year?
Oh, I can't tell you the year. It's like 80s.
Is it something to do with, is Arnold Schwarzenegger in it?
No.
And an old man?
Yep. A young boy and an old man
is it,
go to extraordinary lengths and time, you may say, to make the boy's parents have sex. Yeah.
See when you said young boy?
Yeah.
That makes me think of like a child.
Yeah, I know, didn't it? Ah, really. Okay, number 8.
To make their parents have sex. It's not. Well, I guess it is. It's about falling in love at a school dance, not having sex.
That was Twitter.
God, get your mind out of the gutter.
It was Twitter, that one.
Aye, so
I
was.
came up
Elon
with
Musk.
the space pew pew. Do you know what I mean? Right, okay. Number 8, I came up with this one. 25 movies about a British man pointing a gun.
I wonder what that is. Well, it's not a movie, it's James Bond.
Yeah, the franchise.
The franchise.
By the way, right, I don't know, side note, don't know if this is, what's it called? Mandela effect.
Mm-hmm.
I thought Bond had an E at the end. No. No, you know.
Legally Bondy.
I thought, when I was looking up James Bond to see
Aye.
how many movies were, I was like, I thought it had an E.
No.
No,
No.
maybe it's just me. I'm going to a poll on Twitter. Right, okay. Number 9. What? Oh, okay. This is quite a harsh one. Deadbeat. I can't even say it. Deadbeat dad denies parentage of diabetic man-child during the holidays.
Diabetic man-child?
Yeah.
Ewan Ferguson. Deadbeat dad.
Deadbeat dad denies parentage of diabetic man-child during the holidays.
The Santa Claus?
No, not the Santa Claus.
Elf?
Yeah. I've just realised I'm so close to the camera. Elf, yeah.
Diabetic?
Yeah, well, he's not diabetic,
Oh.
but it was an insult because what is it he has on his
Oh, yeah.
spaghetti?
Aye,
syrup?
aye. Spaghetti
then-
and syrup, aye,
yeah.
right, okay. That was a thinker, that one. Aye.
Every time I have spaghetti, I'm like, no.
Can you pass the syrup, please?
Okay, and number 10,
Right.
which is the best one, which is a direct quote from a Good Bit episode. Just a shark in it.
That is a quote from the Don't Worry Darling episode by you.
Yes.
Yeah. It's not about Jaws because she makes fun of me the fact that I talk about Jaws all the time.
Well, I was going through the episode
Just
trying
a
to
shark
think of
in it.
like stuff, and I thought that one.
That is
was
really
a good
funny.
one. So yeah, well done. I done quite well.
That
Then.
did. If you were going to ask me questions, you should have said something like, "Who said it's just a shark, isn't it?" I would like, Iona said that.
Just a shark
Yeah.
in it.
Well, let's wrap up there because we're over an hour, and I'm very.
Over now. I was worried we were going to be about 20 minutes, and that was it.
Oh no, not at all. I can talk. I'm a host of a podcast, for God's sake. And I always say I don't like it to be about me. I don't want it to be self-indulgent. But yes, I do have a podcast that I'm the host of, so I'm going to talk a lot. I apologise to anybody who's listened to this episode and just wanted me to shut up. But you listened to the episode, you clicked on it, so
yeah.
you only get yourself to blame. Yeah, it's been really fun doing the podcast. I wish I was more consistent with it, and again, I wish it was better. I wish we had more listeners, but it's so hard to get listeners. Like that's the hardest part, you know. And I thought when I would have different guests on all the time, that more people would gravitate towards it. But just like personally, when I see a podcast about something, if I don't absolutely love everything about that podcast and that host and that guest, I'm probably not going to click on it immediately anyway. So podcasts are a hard thing to sell, you know. So I can't get in my head about like I've been doing this for 150 episodes and I'm not like pure famous. That's not what it's about. You know what I mean?
No, and if it is
say-
about that, then you're in the wrong
Yeah.
business. Do you know what I mean?
and you say you do an episode right, and you just like I've knocked my pan in right, and I've done this, I've edited it, and I've done loads of work on it, and I thought it was really good, and I was really happy with it, and I put it out there, right? And 10 people listened to it, and that's it. Then I'm a bit like, I wish more people listened to that. But at the same time, the way I think about it is, as a performer, I've performed in front of less people, and I've knocked my pan in the moment and been totally exhausted, so, and people can go back. I'll also forget, like, when you put a new one out, you don't need to get, like, thousands of listens immediately.
Yeah.
They're going to be, it's there forever. You know what I mean? Like, there's people who will be listening, and if I listen to old episodes of podcasts all the time, so I don't know, man. It's definitely my favourite hobby. I love doing the podcast. I don't like all the technical issues and stuff. It does my head in, because I just want it to work. Why can it not just work?
Well, today we've had a good run. Hopefully,
I touch wood. So that bothers me sometimes, but I'm so grateful when people listen and message me about it and stuff. That's always the coolest thing. I know you've said that recently. People have been like DMing you or maybe saying to you in like parties and stuff, and you're still kind of alien to how to react to that.
Yeah, when people say, "Oh, well done the podcast, I listened," but I'm like,
"Yeah,
you listen? Why are you listening to the podcast?"
Favorite one ever is a pal I used to go to school with called Matt Hughes, not the UFC fighter, but I bumped into Matt Hughes at a rugby club, and he was like, "Chris," I hadn't seen him in years. First thing he said to me was, "Chris, you talk me to sleep," because I had put on the podcast once when he couldn't sleep, and I was like, I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing, but I think it's a massive compliment, because that's where I listen to podcasts when I'm trying to get to sleep. It's a relaxing tool, I also was once outside the Hydro, and a complete stranger came up to me and spotted me and was like, "Oh my God, like, you listen to your podcast?" That was wild.
Yeah.
And it's happened a couple of times, but not loads. So, but it's a podcast. It's not about a face, Maybe people would hear my voice and know what it is. But yeah, so yeah, just thank you to you for doing this today, but thank you for all the listeners and for doing 150 episodes worth of tuning in.
I know it's a lot.
That's a lot.
8 years.
Just but
reminder.
It should be so much more if I've been doing it for 8 years. You know
what I
mean?
I think it's technically like 8 and nearly a half years, because it's like March or something.
Start stoppy though, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's kind of start stoppy. But yeah, no, I will continue, although it is so much work and it takes up so much time. But that's what you do for it. It's the love of the game. It's the grind. It's the hustle. I think it's admirable when I see people also knocking their pan in trying to do it. Yeah. So I just hope people see the effort and see how passionate I am about it and how much I enjoy it and how grateful I am for people who give me their time to come and talk to me about cinema.
Yeah. Well, I hope everybody enjoyed the episode and it wasn't utter pants.
Yeah, well, most likely because it was just me talking for so long. But
you can be back in the driver's seat.
Yeah, I'll be back in the driver's seat.
Please, I didn't like it.
Soon. No, thanks for hosting. That was good. I never get asked questions. Yeah.
Do you know, I have once said to him before after finishing an episode, I said to him, I feel like I never ask you questions, but it's because he's so good at just asking a question, then you have a conversation, and then he leads it to like the next question. You're so good at it. You don't let the rhythm fall, whereas I feel like I've got a long way to go.
Well, that's it, isn't it? It is a flow. It's like a performance. If you're doing a play, you can't let it drop.
Yeah.
You need to keep the ball rolling, and that is also the difference between a good podcast and a bad podcast, or a good host and a bad host. You need to keep it. You need to be on the ball. So, but you don't need to worry about it. I'm the host.
Thank God. I'm sure they'll all be the same. My dad will be the same. He listens. He'll be like, "Aye, tell her shut up."
You can start your own podcast and you can do your own flow. How about that?
Imagine.
Yeah. All right, everybody. Thank you for listening as always, and thanks for watching. Take us home, please, Iona.
Oh, I need to finish it.
Give us the socials.
The socials. At the Good Bit Pod on TikTok.
Yeah.
Or was that the same on Instagram?
TikTok,
same
Instagram,
handle,
Twitter,
X,
Facebook, buymeacoffee.com. You can buy us a coffee now.
Yeah, that's a new thing.
That's a new thing.
Yeah.
It's not a real coffee. Rachel was so confused. It's not a real coffee.
No.
It's a way to support the show.
He's not going to get a caramel latte.
Although I'd love one right now. But yeah, why don't we go to the cinema tonight?
We'll go to the cinema tonight?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can go to the cinema tonight.
Okay. Let's finish on that note.
Okay, if I finish
yeah,
it, you finish
host.
it. I know, but I want to give it back to you because I don't like it.
Okay, I'll do it then.
I'll finish it off, but you'll be like, "Is that it?"
Okay.
Don't criticise me then.
Right.
Oh, now I don't know what to say.
Is that it? No, you can say what I say at the end of all the episodes. Catch you down the road. This has been the Good Bit Podcast. Take care of yourselves, everybody, and we'll catch you all down the road. There you go.
Do I need to say that?
Yeah.
Just use that.
I just did.
Oh, no, okay. Are we ready, everybody, for the finale of today's episode? Yeah, I've done quite well. I'm quite proud of myself. Okay, well, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. If you're listening or watching on YouTube, like, subscribe, comment, share. I'm going to share, actually. And we never actually say this. Can you subscribe to the podcast, please? And
follow the podcast.
And follow our... rate it.
Yeah, rate it 5 stars.
You do that, don't you? Yeah, going to just rate it. Just 5. Don't need to tell us why. Just 5. Please.
Yeah, leave a comment if you want.
Or just be honest. If it's 2 stars, it's fine.
Those are ways to support by doing things like that and sharing word of mouth.
But yeah.
There's a big one too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of people do that though.
Do they?
Yeah. And actually recently there's been quite a lot of shares.
Yeah.
On like the Facebook. Everybody doing quite well.
From our mums.
Yeah, our mums love it. Yeah, anyway, thanks for watching. Thanks for the support. Love after all the 150 episodes. You've done quite well. And this is, what did I say? This is the Good Bit